Good morning. Good morning, Vietnam. And other such films that might be suitably appropriate to shout good morning about. How are you all doing? Rowan Williams, that's probably, see, my cultural references are all over the place these days because I'm getting on a bit. And the go-to cultural reference is always Friends, because everybody's watched Friends, haven't they? Everybody's watched that. Or they've deliberately decided not to. How are you all doing? How are you all doing? It's Monday the 4th of October, 2021. There you go. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are doing absolutely wonderfully. And here's Monday, and you're all probably very busy, I'd imagine, immediately. Unless, of course, you planned everything on Friday and you'll be waiting to get at your jobs, waiting to get at the stuff that you need to do. And one thing just kind of crossed my mind at the weekend, I suppose, because I was reading something um, by somebody who was kind of, I suppose, being quite negative about self care, and I get that angle. Sometimes, and I hope I don't do this, I don't think I do, sometimes people kind of flag self care up as being a kind of panacea. Well, it's helpful. It's helpful. That's why I talk about it a lot, because it's very, very helpful. But as I've often said, we're often labouring in problematic or broken systems often, and while I am completely and utterly an advocate for self care, it is just part of the puzzle. So I'm going to keep plugging away. Despite the detractors who seem to want to criticize self care and resilience as a strategy, like I say, I understand where they're coming from, because sometimes if it's utilized by organizations as we'll not bother fixing the system, we'll not bother fixing the system. I often hear leaders and managers, kind of say, I know you're all busy. Well done for being busy. Just, you know, um, make sure you take a break. But well, let's sort out the busy bit. Let's sort out the too much to do bit as well. But yes, absolutely, take a break and rest and that kind of thing. So, no apology for talking about self care, but an absolute acknowledgement. Um, in the sense of what I've read, that self care is a part. I'll talk about productivity strategies, workflow strategies, and stuff, and those things will help without a shadow of a doubt. But there are other answers required. Person in environment. Person in environment is the key. It's like if you've got a plant and you put it in the wrong place because the plant likes sunlight or it likes shade or whatever. If you put it in the wrong place, it'll probably, yeah, be all right. You know what I mean? It'll be canny, and you can do as much as you can in terms of care for the plant. The plant can't self care, obviously, but you could water it, you could feed it, you could do those kind of things. But still, if it's in the wrong environment, it's not going to thrive. It might survive, but we need to do better than survive, don't we? And that was the point of the article, I suppose, to say we need to do better than survive, and we do. And the secret is a combination of personal responsibility, corporate responsibility, and also our responsibility to each other. I sometimes think that we crash into people and we cause um, problems for other people as well. So personal responsibility, responsibility for others, and some sort of organisational responsibility. Anyway, and the thing that led me to think about was something that I do talk about when I'm doing sessions, and that's just to remember this, because I love to talk about productivity because I love being productive. Um, I've got lots of things going on this week. It's going to be a great week. I'm doing all sorts from delivering stuff like this. I'm going into the recording studio this afternoon to record in the duo that I'm part of, and then I'm at work and delivering lectures and all that kind of thing. And I'll get to Friday and it'll all be wonderful. And I'm having some nice chats on Friday, so it's a really busy week. But what I have to remember, and what you have to remember, is productivity is great. However, there is a thing called toxic productivity, and that's working to the extent that actually your health or your relationships or your general well-being are harmed in some way. And sometimes that's unrealistic expectations of self, Sometimes it's unrealistic expectations of the I don't want to just say organisations because it's more than that. Unrealistic expectations of the structures that we're part of, families, friendship groups, workplaces, you know, clubs, societies, internet stuff, everything. Unrealistic expectations for imposed on us by other people. And on ourselves, as I said, unrealistic expectations of self, and toxic productivity leads to kind of, I suppose, a restlessness. You know, I was thinking about being busy when I was walking the dog, and I do think there's a difference between being busy. So sometimes people are genuinely busy. You know, often people are genuinely busy in the workplace. I've talked about that many times. That we are tasked in workplaces generally to do more than is possible, and that's across the board, because we are overshadowed by this political ideology, central politics, political ideology of you can do more with less, can't you? So get on and do that. So, you know, there's a difference, I think, between being busy because we are genuine, but sometimes feeling busy is a different sort of thing. And I feel sometimes we feel busy because things aren't, we're not controlling things as effectively as we could. And a little bit of control over things kind of starts to make us feel as though we're busy, but we're coping with it. And you know, to a point. Um, but we can't let that get toxic. We can't being busy to a point, even pushing ourselves a little bit. That's how we build resilience, isn't it? We kind of figure out we could do a little bit more. Now, you know, but it can't get to the point where it's toxic. If it starts to have an effect on your health or your relationships or your well-being, then we're in dangerous waters. Um, Rest is absolutely crucial, isn't it? So it's a restlessness problem. It manifests itself like that. And I think it's sometimes a bit of a cultural problem, isn't it? You know, there's still this thing that permeates through the workplace about you know the lunch at the desk kind of philosophy, that kind of thing. You know, so I think these things are quite real. You know, life at work, lunch at the desk, working late, starting early, those kind of things. Um, they're permanent, they're cultural in the workplace. And then if you seem to be not doing those things, then somehow people question your desire to do your best for the organisation and that kind of thing, don't they? So that's a cultural problem. We need to think if somebody's having a break, they're having a break. They must need a break, you know. And if they're not pulling their weight, for want of a better word, if they're not doing all the work that they need to be doing, you know, the crucial stuff, then it'll soon become apparent, and you know, but it's dangerous when we do it. The more it becomes expected of us. That's one of these toxic organisation problems, isn't it? That it's like when people just work late, don't they? I had a senior manager say it to me at one point, talking about taking a lunch break. Well, it's just the job, isn't it? You just the job. You don't get a lunch break. No, not just the job. It's not just the job at all. You know, people need the space to self care within their working day. So it's not just the job. If it's just the job, then something needs to be done about the job. Something needs to be done about the job to free up time so people can rest. Because it's actually a win-win situation. It's one of Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a win-win situation. If you give staff time to rest, time to disconnect from work, time to decompress from the stress of the morning, they will work more efficiently in the afternoon. That's better for them because they feel more positive about what they're doing. They feel more in control and in charge of what they're doing, and better for the organisation. So it's a win-win. So if the organisational culture is we don't take lunch breaks, we always work late, we always work early, then something needs to shift in the organisation, because the only way people can self-care is, which is important in itself, the only way people can do that is if they've had the time freed up either by themselves, you know, because they work differently, or and I'm talking here about an evening and on a weekend and stuff as well, not just in the working day, but they find time. And also the importance of resting during the day periodically needs organizations to accept that that's a really important thing. So um, so productivity is important, but we shouldn't measure our self-worth by it. Yeah. um, if we can't keep up with the pace of work, then we have to look at whether we could do things differently, obviously, because we might be able to do something a bit differently and change our the way we strategize our work or our workflow, and that might help, but it might not as well. So we can't become obsessed with measuring our self-worth based on productivity. We have to have a good look at it to make sure we're doing the best we can, because we all want to do that. We all like to do the best we can, but we shouldn't measure our self-worth on it, particularly if we're in organizations where where it's a bit of an impossible task, maybe. So recognize you're a human being and you are enough as you are for the day. You are enough as you are. Recognize that you're just one person. But also, we've got to think about this self-care stuff. Recognize that self-care isn't an indulgence. Yeah, it's not kind of taking a kind of snidey break and getting away with something. It's not that at all. So we have to have self-care as a non-negotiable, really. And in terms of organizations, we have to understand that at times self-care needs to be non-negotiable. So yes, of course, sometimes you will work through your lunch break, occasionally. Sometimes you will work late, occasionally. Sometimes you'll have to get up and start at 6 o'clock in the morning to get something done, occasionally. But it should be occasional. So there should be some stuff that's non-negotiable. If I've had to work late 5 days a week, then there's something going wrong somewhere. So not working late 5 days a week becomes a non-negotiable self-care strategy. Once a week, twice a week, periodically, whatever. Fair enough. That's being in a professional sort of job, in it. You have to kind of ride the peaks and troughs. Remember last week? There's a thing last week, if you didn't catch it, about riding the peaks and troughs, and it's about doing as much in the troughs as possible to ride out those peaks. But there you go. So recognize you're human, you're enough as you are, and you can't do everything. But recognize as well, and organizations recognize, that self-care is not an indulgence, and sometimes it has to be non-negotiable. Sometimes people just need a break. So there you go. So remember that as we go through the week. You're only one person. Do as much as you can, as often as you can, but there comes a point where self-care becomes the thing that you absolutely have to do. So there you go. Enjoy your weeks. We'll check in on Wednesday, see how you're getting on. All right. Take care. See you soon.